Hey, I'm Brad, and welcome to another episode of Overkill Reviews. You already know this, but it's our weekly metal review show. As far as personal updates, tomorrow I'm heading to the US to see the return of Winds of Plague with a band I manage called Of Sulfur. I'm really excited. It's going to be a great show. It'll be over by the time you watch this, but as of right now, I'm excited, except for the 7:30 a.m. flight. Not good, but worth it. This week, I'm reviewing the much anticipated new album from a band who are somehow simultaneously pushing metallic hardcore forward while looking back to do so. I'll dig into the how they're looking back thing in a little bit, but for now we're looking forward. That was the first single that Bane released from this album, called This World Is Going to Ruin You, out today on Closed Casket Activities and Nuclear Blast Records. Vane FM formed as Vane, no period, no FM, back in 2013 in the Merrimack Valley region of Massachusetts. The typical demo to EP release cycle occurred, and back then, originally, they were, perhaps more easily put into a box, with their influences being more in line with chaotic metalcore, screamo, and the hardcore overall umbrella parent genre from which those genres came. They'd release a split with the band Gift from God, which was later re-released as the Self-Destruct EP. Between that and a 2017 set at This Is Hardcore, they really got shot on an upward trajectory. At that show, which was captured on video by Hate56, their legion of friends were all wearing matching black windbreakers, which added intrigue and produced one of the most in-demand merch items of late. Seriously, you could have sold those for bang. They ended that performance with a new song, which would eventually go by the name Doomtech on their 2018 debut LP, Error Zone. I actually reviewed that album in a dual/half review with Imperial Triumphant's Vile Luxury. Those two albums are polar opposites, aside from the dissonance, which they both have in spades. Vane would continue their evolution here, pulling in opposite directions with more nu metal grooves and sampling. It's simultaneously the polar opposite of mathcore/screamo, which operates in this chaos-laden absence of groove world, while also being very similar with the sampling adding to the chaos and making it exponentially more so. Debates flew around about them being a nu metal band or not, but in the end, what really matters is that they utilized nu metal's groovier aspects and the darkness for a remarkably unique take on metallic hardcore. They'd also drop an Odds and Ends LP, which included demos, remasters, remixes, and an acoustic take of the chaotic banger Untitled, here called 20 Seconds, 20 Hours. Their moniker would also be modified around this time, adding .fm to the end. All of which is to say, because we're pulling in a lot of different directions here, chaos, nu metal, metallic hardcore, screamo, acoustic. No one really knows where they're going. Presumably the world in the title that will ruin you is the real world, or is it referring to the error zone? Are we in the error zone? Is the error zone a part of the real world? Are we living in a simulation? I'm going to try to figure that out now. The song that played earlier was the first song written for this album back nearly 5 years ago, according to an interview with Spin. And it shows. It's sonically the most similar to Error Zone, albeit, perhaps a bit darker and more pissed off. Well, it's kind of true about it being the oldest song. There was a Kerrang interview. Can you tell that I like to consume as much as I can about an album before reviewing it to really contextualize it? Now you know. That interview points out that the opener on this album, Welcome Home, literally welcomes you back to the error zone with a twisted and looped version of a section from that album's song, Demise Automation. It's the kind of Easter egg you might miss on listens 1 through 5, but over time, the more in-tune fan may pick up on it. Its thunderous build feels even more cacophonous than Error Zone, and indeed, in maintaining but mutating some of its DNA, it sets a precedent for where this album is going. There are some straight up ferocious songs on this album, such as Inside Design, which is the next closest thing to Error Zone, though the second half's blip, 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 blip glitches. No, I don't like that. I'm just gonna say blip, blip. I'm not gonna be weird. Though the second half has these blip, blip, blip glitches and DJ scratches, which takes the sound to its next logical step, the nu metal influence that is. This is the same band that added a live sampler and DJ in Benno Levine, who is now, evidently, 100% in the band. There's another ripper called Lights Out, which ends with a subtle nod back to Welcome Home, which itself is a nod back to Demise Automation. So if you're following along here in the VCU, the Vane Cinematic Universe, in which the Error Zone is the galaxy, that's where we're at. There's also the Blazing Fast versus Wyoming, which puts Chaos far, far, far ahead of Groove, unless you're drummer Matt Wood, who somehow manages both and proves why he's like one of the best drummers in the game. Damn, I hate to think what someone in that state did to invite such vitriolic viciousness. Sorry, Wyoming. Somehow, throughout all of this, they strengthened their ties to Screamo. Both the OG style, which is now colloquially, I hate that fucking word. Both the OG style, now colloquially known as Scrams, and the mid-2000s appropriation of the term, which took it to MTV and very large stages, not basements. They do this through collaborations. On the former front, the Scrams side, with Jerome's Dream vocalist Jeff Smith on Hell Night, and then on the latter, you know, the more mainstream popular side, with Thursday vocalist Jeff Rickley on Fear and Nonfiction. But what's truly remarkable is how seamlessly they fold all of that into their own sound. The Scrams incorporation is less of a shocker considering it's always been there, but they also somehow managed to effectively channel the mid-2000s. The chorus part of Fear and Nonfiction feels like a build before it drops out and then comes back, building to Rickley's guest spot. The build stylistically fits in line with Thursday and bands that exploded in their wake, such as Under Oath, From First to Last, etc. I'm not going to play that song because it was a single. That's a waste of a clip. You should already know it, damn it. But when Rickley comes in, it all, comes together. It all makes sense. But then the song devolves into chaos like immediately after, almost as if his presence was a mission statement, was a direction, was a raison d'etre. I'm not French, but fuck it, Anyway, now that arrow is spinning in a compass, they're lost, and that's a good thing. The chaos is cool. Chaos is cool. But they're not really necessarily lost, because the singing on this album kind of approximates Rickley's voice. After more of a loop sample on Magazine Breach, that singing really takes over the song. That they can even channel bands like, dare I say, Armor for Sleep and other bands that are more on the emo side rather than the screamo side, and let that cut through their music just underscores how in control they are of this like meticulously crafted music. It's really remarkable. Actually, I'm going to start this clip with the singing, then it goes back to the loop, even though it starts with the loop and then goes into the singing, just to throw you for a loop. Loop. That's far from the softest moment on the album though. Wherever You Are is piano driven, and Wavery kind of brings to mind, like, and I hate to keep bringing it up, but Thursday meets Deftones with like post-metal peppered throughout, and then it eventually just devolves into like drone. It's the kind of artsy slow burn that would make Converge proud. I don't know if we're gonna throw it on top here, but last review I did, I said criticism's not the bad. Once again, I'm criticizing. As much as I'm a fan of Rickley's part, and indeed of his voice, he is distractingly forward in the mix. While the band's frontman Anthony's voice becomes one with it, like a static atop noise, Rickley really sticks out. Perhaps this is to elevate the mood change that happens upon his introduction, but it is a bit jarring if you're listening to this music while zoned out and just having it wash all over you. You're gonna be like, what just happened? Funeral Sound, on the other hand, is specifically made for when you're experiencing the album. In one of those interviews that I read, it pointed out how like the opening lyrics are basically inviting you to do this, to turn off everything and just like let it in. This song reminds me of the closer on Slipknot's Iowa in that it's as much an experiment as a song. Subtle piano and near whispered crooning opens before a haunting woman speaks. I'm sure it's by design that it's hard to discern exactly what she's saying, but the main stumble for the song is that this midsection goes on a bit long and, you know, kind of tugs on your attention span before it kicks back in for another post-everything dirge and build that, once again, would make Converge proud. And who more do you want to make proud than Converge in this genre? Orgy in the Morgue is as visceral a song as its title is shocking, but the guest spot from rapper Bones kind of blends in with the music a bit more than I expected. I'd hoped his dark hip hop would be more prominent. He works with the song perhaps a bit too well. Still, the song as a whole is awesome. I really like it. So this is definitely a positive of the album, but I was just a bit shocked that the hip hop elements were not quite as prominent. But then again, Vane is not a band who does what you expect. So this was probably by design as well. Vane have this otherworldly ability to make short songs feel long. Well, maybe not long, but complete. There's so much going on here. Each track is a fulfilling listen. This album is less immediately catchy than Arizona, and by doing my research, reading reviews, that was by design. And you can feel it. Remember how I said they were pushing things forward while simultaneously looking back? Well, that's referring to, you know, nu metal, the screamo of both sides. These are genres that came to prominence and peaked quite a while ago. So they're looking back to push themselves and the genre forward. I think at this point the debate is going to stop raging, maybe be, you know, a slight simmer here and there as to whether these guys are a nu metal band or not. Vane is making music in the, once again, Vane cinematic universe. This is very cinematic. They are creating their own world. They're doing what they want. It's a remarkable album that challenges itself, the band and musicians who are a part of it, and the listener. So this is deja vu, but once again, I'm giving Vane 4.5 skulls out of 5. It's Shoutout time. First up, I'm going to rewind back to August 13 of 2021 when the band Desolate released their EP, The Fate of Destruction is the Joy of Rebirth, independently. Stylistically, this fits in with Vane, albeit maybe a bit more on the mainstream side of metalcore, but it's exciting. There's a lot going on. There's electronic elements, and this is truly up there with the most excited I've ever been for a new band that I found. I really, really like this band. Now we're getting closer to the present, but we're going to this year, February 18th, with the band Foreign Hands, their EP, Bleed the Dream, which came out on Days. This band features members of Wrist Meet Razor, and like them, are pushing forward metallic hardcore in like that transitionary phase where it was still chaotic, but it was going slightly more melodic. It's like a continuation of Poison the Well after their second album, continuing on that style. And now we're actually going into the future. Next week, Angelmaker is releasing their album Sanctum independently in collaboration with Bloodblast Distribution. This band is pushing forward deathcore while taking influence purposely from the early days of the genre, but they keep pushing themselves. So it's like they're here and they're here, and it makes for an interesting listen. The vocalist of the band on my shirt right here, Carcosa, plays guitar in the band. Definitely worth listening to. Plus, they're Canadian. And another release coming out on that day is Extinction AD, their album Cult of Violence on Unique Leader Records. There's a song Mastic on this, and it's a really fun listen, but especially the end, like there's this build up and like a breakdown with these like flurries of double bass, and it's just, it hits hard, it's catchy, it's groovy, it's a lot of fun. Overall, these guys are somewhere, you know, in the Sepultura realm. They manage to be groove, they manage to be thrash, they manage to be awesome. Thank you so much for watching this review. I expect I'll hear what you think in the comments below, and have a good one.